Afternoon, folks. First, want to thank everybody for joining the webinar. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I'll start by introducing myself and the company. My name is John Findlay. I'm one of the founders of Launchfire. We're a digital engagement shop, so we focus on gamified interactive promotions directed at consumer, as well as gamified employee training programs. So we've been gamifying stuff since 1999, so before gamification was actually a hot buzzword. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to gamify things, certain tactics we can use to leverage gamification to drive engagement. And I should mention, if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them into the messenger there and message them off to me. Happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So I guess we'll get started. So in getting ready for today's presentation, I Googled the word gamification to see what the pundits were saying these days. And I found a bunch of definitions. The first one, the use of game thinking and game mechanics to engage users in solving problems. And it's not a bad definition, but I wouldn't say that gamification necessarily needs to be solving problems. So the second one I found, the application of game playing elements to other activities, typically as an online marketing technique. I definitely don't think that gamification necessarily has to be indexed to online marketing. We can gamify all sorts of things beyond marketing programs. And then the application of game theory concepts and techniques to non-game activities. I think that one's a little bit closer. I kind of broke it down and put my own definition in there. And kind of the way we think around here is it's turning an activity into a game to make it fun. I think that's the essence of gamification. I'll give you a couple examples. I've got a 6-year-old boy. His name is Jackson, and he's a big Lego fan. Loves to play Lego, but not a big fan of cleaning up after himself. So what I do is I take the Lego box, push it to the other side of the living room, and we stand back and throw the Lego pieces into the box, and we count how many in a row we've got. Well, this has got him sufficiently inspired that he actually empties the box after filling it, and we clean up for a second time, often sometimes 3 times. So gamification's working on my son. In fact, it's working on my daughter as well. She's just learning to read, and she's not the most enthusiastic reader. She doesn't think it's a skill she's going to need over the long term. So I've created a little game that gets her to read, and basically I put 5 words on a page. She has to read them, and if she gets all 5 without making a mistake, she gets a star. And that's got her tugging up my shirt sleeve when I get home, asking if we can play the word game. In fact, her teacher's cottoned on to gamification as well. Megan's in French immersion, and so her teacher puts a flower on the wall for each child with 5 petals. And each day that you don't get caught speaking English, you're able to color in one of the petals. And if you color in all of the petals in a week, you get a prize. And so gamification is being used to get kids to speak French in the classroom. So those are some very rudimentary examples of gamification, but ones that I really think sort of exemplify how simple it can be, yet how motivating it can be. So that explains sort of gamification, but I guess what's important to us is how can gamification help us as marketers? I guess the ultimate goal for a marketer obviously is to drive sales. But in order to drive sales, in order to get consumers all the way to the sale, we first have to get them engaged. And I think there's definitely some great ways to use gamification to engage consumers. The next thing, we need to educate people. And not so much so if I'm buying nuts and bolts, it doesn't really matter as long as I know the size, it's fine. But when I start to get into either more emotional purchases or larger purchases, I do want to do some research. If I'm buying clothes, I might want to find out what the latest fashions are. If I'm buying a barbecue, I want to do some research so I can comparatively shop and understand which barbecue is best suited for me. And I think it's that education process and getting people educated about our value propositions and competitive advantages that actually creates consideration and pushes them a little further towards that sale. Of course, we can't always motivate people to purchase during a promotional period and the time that we happen to engage folks. So I think one of the things we can do with gamification tactics is to get people to join our social communities, our loyalty programs, opt into our email lists and so forth, so that we can continue to foster a relationship, so that we are part of the consideration set when the time comes that they're ready to purchase. So I think there's a lot of different ways that we can use gamification to to engage people and move them towards purchase as they move around this cycle. So we'll start with engaging folks. I mean, now more than ever, there are more media options at our fingertips as marketers. Channels are seen to be proliferating at quite a rate. So how do we cut through the clutter with all these channels and make sure that our message breaks through and is heard? And I think I've got some words up there, play, win, save. These words sort of focus on what's in it for the consumer, what's in it for them to engage with you and to participate in one of your programs. And so I think because we're focusing on value to the consumer, it's those things that cut through the clutter and those things that will actually drive results and drive engagement. And you can see that play and win and save, these are sort of words that evoke thoughts of games and so forth, and so they make it fun, entertaining, and there's something in it for the consumer. So once we've got people engaged, once we've got their attention, where do we direct them to? Here's an example. I Googled this. I found this on Google, and it's a great looking promotion. I got a chance to win $7,000 a week for life if I just fill out this form. Seems like a great promotion. This is precisely the type of program we wouldn't recommend running. Around the office, we call this a hit and run promotion, and the reason is that people don't stick around. For this type of promotion, we would expect people to stay for no longer than 30 seconds. And we think that leaves a lot of value on the table. We, at Launchfire, we actually do focus groups. And a recent focus group that we did, we sent out a link to a promotion similar to this to our test group and asked them to sign up for the promotion. They did so, and we checked the server logs in the afternoon, and everybody who signed up, we sent a follow-up email with a questionnaire which featured only 2 questions. And the questions were, who was the sponsoring brand and what was the prize? Well, more than 90% of people were able to tell us what the prize was, and less than 20% could name the sponsoring brand. And that's because this program, this hit and run promotion, kept people engaged for 30 seconds or less and did nothing to educate people. And I'm pretty sure the KPI is for these guys isn't to give away $7,000 a week for life. The KPI is to drive some marketing results, get people engaged and educated, move them towards purchase. And so it's this type of promotion that we think kind of fails where interactive promotions are concerned. And I think using gamification tactics, we can certainly drive better results. So the first sort of better result that I'd highlight is 10 minutes. Over the 14 years we've been gamifying programs, 10 minutes is about the average we've been able to get people to engage for. In that 10 minutes, we can do some amazing things. I mean, we can get 80% of people to opt into your email list. We can increase your Facebook reach by 20-fold. We can increase basket size, purchase frequency. We can take otherwise disinterested staff members and get them eager to take your next training course. All these gamification tactics we can use to keep people engaged and motivate them to engage deeper with our brands and our content. And I think it's that 10 minutes that's really valuable, and it's how we use that 10 minutes. And I guess next we'll sort of dig into ways that we can use that 10 minutes. So in identifying which gamification tactics can be used to drive that 10 minutes, we sort of broke it down into 3 categories. So we progress, uprising, and surprise and delight. And I'll dig into each of these in a little more depth. So progress is a key one. People need to feel like they're actually getting somewhere. They're actually making progress, or they'll turn off. As an example, I'm a guitar player, and I find that if I'm learning a new song or I'm increasing my knowledge of theory, and let's talk about a new song. If I'm learning a new song, I keep practicing it, and each time I play it, I get better and I get better, and I get closer and closer to perfecting it. And I find when I'm learning something, I want to pick that guitar up all the time. I'm very motivated to play. But the minute I'm not learning, I find I don't pick my guitar up nearly as much. There's no challenge. There's no progress. I'm just not as interested. We see the same thing with employees. If you got employees that are constantly doing the same task and there's never really any advancement in their job, you start to see attrition. You see a higher turnover rate when you've got your employees that have jobs like that. So I think it's a common human thing that we want to feel some progress. So how can we show progress? Well, one of them is leveling, and if you take, games feature different levels, different accomplishments you have to get to. And take the analogy of I don't know if you've ever played one of those sort of driving racing games on a console game, but you're driving along and you hit that first corner, and inevitably you wipe out because you're not quite good at it yet. And so you have to start over, and you go into that turn again, and this time you do it a little better, but you don't quite make it. After a few times, you actually make it through that turn. You have a sense of accomplishment, and then you're racing down the track into the next turn. You kind of go through that same process on the next turn as you learn that next turn and master it. And eventually, the whole trick is seeing if you can put the whole track together. But that motivates you because you keep getting better and just a little bit better each time. And each time you fail, you're highly motivated to go back in and try again. So I think leveling is very important, and at the end of a level, you finish a track, and then you're given a next set of goals to go after, and I think that keeps people engaged. We've got collection. Collection kind of leverages an instinct in people. People love to collect things. They serve as collection things that you can collect serve as badges. They serve as motivation, but also bragging. Things that you've accomplished. We've used medals to get young men to risk their lives. We've used badges and so forth to get Boy Scouts to learn all sorts of new skills. Even your team jersey as an athlete in school, you proudly wear that around the school. It shows something you've accomplished. So I think badges, trophies, that kind of thing can be very, very effective. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Nike Run app. I'm a runner, and a guy here at the office suggested that I download the app for my iPhone, which I did, and went for a run. It uses GPS to track how fast you're running and how far and so forth. Anyway, turned it on and went for a run. Unfortunately, found out how slow I was running. But after my third run, at the end of the run, it came up and it said that I had run my fastest mile. Well, that was really motivating, and for running my fastest mile, I got a little trophy. It was nothing. It was a piece of digital graphic, essentially, that went into a virtual trophy case. But I found myself the next time I ran pushing a little harder to try to break that top time. A funny story. One of the guys here at the office also took up running, and I said to him, "You got to get the app. I mean, it's amazing. It'll get you motivated. You'll run faster than you ever have. All that blah blah blah." So he downloaded the app, got it on his phone. He went home one evening, and he's got a 16 or 17-year-old kid who asked if he could borrow the phone to see how fast he was running. So the guy said, "Yeah, sure, you can borrow the phone." His kid went out and ran, and the kid, of course, runs like a gazelle. He broke all the records. So now the guy, my friend here at the office, can't break any records because he's not as fast as his kid. Incidentally, he hasn't run for over a month now. But all that to say, the trophies and badges and so forth can be very motivating to keep people engaged and motivate people to go on and try to achieve the next level and so forth. And then lastly, there's scenery. If I go back to the analogy of the driving game, in a driving game you might start off in the desert, and that keeps you interested for a while, and as soon as you've mastered that part, then suddenly you're in a city. And the track might be exactly the same, but the scenery's different, and that keeps you engaged and keeps you motivated, keeps you wanting to play, and makes things new and interesting. All of a sudden, there's all sorts of new visual stimulus to keep you engaged. And so I think scenery can really play a key role in keeping people engaged as well. So the next gamification tactic is prizing. And prizing can be a very powerful incentive to get people to engage with your brand. And it breaks down into sort of two categories. There's your grand prize, the higher value stuff, cash, cars, trips, that sort of thing. And then there's smaller prizing, sort of instant win or daily prizing. And they both serve different purposes. The grand prizing is the stuff that initially catches people's attention. It's the stuff that we would recommend people highlight in their outward-facing media, their print ads, their banner ads, their email blasts, this sort of thing. Where often advertisers want to promote their brand as much as possible in that out-facing media, it's smarter if you to promote the grand prize, because what we're trying to do is get people engaged so that we can get them to educate them about our brand. If we put our logo out there, they're not learning very much. But if we put a grand prize out there and people click on that link or enter the URL from seeing the print ad and come and engage, suddenly we can get tons more value out of that media. So the grand prize serves as this initial lure to get people, to draw people into our programs. The thing about grand prizes is, I think most of us believe that we're not the lucky ones. We're not necessarily going to win this. In fact, it's highly unlikely that we'll win. And so the grand prize, while it can get us to come and fill out a form, take 30 seconds and so forth for our shot to win, we don't really believe that our odds are that good. So we'll give you a tiny bit of time, but we're not going to stick around. And this is where daily or instant win prizing comes in. I think the human brain believes that it has greater odds of winning things of low value because none of us really feel like we're lucky. And so with the lower value prizing, there's typically more of them. There might be 100 instant win prizes, 50 instant win prizes, and only one grand prize. So our perception is that our odds of winning the instant win are much higher. So that serves to keep us engaged, to keep us coming back every day for another chance to win or to play that instant win game and so forth. So I think prizing is crucial, and your prizing is a strategy unto itself that needs to be thought out. It's got to be targeted at your target demographic, things that are high value to them, and you've got to use it appropriately to drive specific engagement. So the last tactic on the list was surprise and delight. And you can see on my screen this over-ebullient young woman who seems to be very, very much delighted by whatever is on her screen. So surprise and delight is having things pop up within a game that are unexpected. Everybody likes a surprise, unless, of course, it's a punch in the face. Nobody's all that fond of that. But in a game context, a surprise, maybe you're playing a game and an instant win pops up, a chance to instantly win something. Or maybe it's a fancy little animation, something that's different. An example would be we used to build advert games, and one of the first advert games we built was a hockey game in which you were the shooter and you shot on the goalie. And if by chance you happen to hit the goalie in the head, stars would appear over his head and the goalie would be stunned, and you could score a couple quick goals while the goalie couldn't move. Similarly, if you hit him in the midsection, he'd double over in agony, and you could score a couple of goals on while he was incapacitated. And what we found was people started posting about this sort of little thing in the game, and so then people started to play more and more because they actually wanted to hit the goalie in the head and hit him in the midsection to see the reaction. And so it was that type of little surprise and delight that got people talking about the game, got people sharing the game, and got tons of people playing it repeatedly for the chance that they might be able to discover this surprise and delight. So seemingly really nothing can really drive additional engagement and social sharing and buzz for your campaign by simply incorporating surprising little things that people enjoy. So we've covered off some of the gamification tactics to get people engaged and keep their attention for a while. Next, we want to talk about the types of things that we can do once we have people engaged. And if you can harken back to the graphic of the wheel that we showed, it's really those three things. It's educating people about the value propositions of our brands, our competitive advantages, and so forth. It's growing our social audience so that we create a direct pipeline into consumers, so that we can continue to foster relationships with them so that when they are ready to purchase, we're top of mind and we're part of their consideration set. And then lastly, it's driving purchase, specific ways that we can incentivize people to actually go into store and buy something. And so I think we'll cover off a few different ways that we can do all of these things using gamification tactics. So the first one is educate. And here's a little example I kind of just created. And it's a simple quiz, and it says, at what blistering speed can you cruise the internet with Rogers high-speed internet? And there's a little find answer button on which you can click to visit the Rogers site to see what the answer is. So not very compelling standing on its own, but if you imagine that within the context of a game, so let's say if you're familiar with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where you've got a series of questions that you have to answer correctly, and for each one you move up to the next level. But if you get one wrong, you're out. Well, consider this question within the context of a game like that, and you'll find that people are fairly motivated to click on the site and find the right answer. Now, if you also harken back to the slide about prizing, if you also make it so that they have a chance to instantly win, or they increase their odds of winning the grand prize for each question they answer successfully, or correctly, I should say, then they're very motivated to go to that site and look and see that it's 150 megabits per second and come back and click on the right answer. So using it, this is sort of a rudimentary example, but a way that you can take sort of simple quiz, gamify it a little more, make it fun, put incentives in to actually get people to engage and learn more about your brand. So that was kind of a rudimentary example of gamification. This one that I'm showing here is a little more robust. So something we did for a food marketer, and they had some new food items that they wanted to promote and highlight. And historically, their best tactic has been recipes, and you can understand why it's recipes. I don't know how many of you people are chefs or cooks. I don't quite qualify as a chef, but I'm certainly the cook at home. And so, a few times a week on my way home, I'm tasked with hitting the grocery store and picking a few items to cook for the family for dinner. And this can become a sort of tiresome task as you become sick of the recipes you typically make and so forth, and you're looking for new ideas. And the way I've combated that is, during the day I Google some recipes and try to find stuff that I think the family will like, and I send them to my mobile phone so that I've got it right there. I've got the list of ingredients. I go into the supermarket on my way home and buy them. So you can see how recipes, have been a good tactic for this marketer. Unfortunately, they're also a common tactic for every other food marketer, be it CPG, grocery, you name it. All sorts of food marketers are using recipes. So we thought, how are we going to cut through the clutter with this recipe tactic and make it a little more fun, drive a little more engagement? So in this example, you can see that on the right-hand side, we've got a list of 4 recipes, each with a different number of ingredients. The top one has 5 ingredients, and the next one has 4, and so on and so forth. And your objective is to try to collect all of the ingredients in one of the recipes, and for whichever recipe you collect all the ingredients for, let's say it's the top one, because there's more ingredients, you would get 10 entries into the draw, and for the second one, you get 6 entries, and so on and so forth. And the way that you collect them is you play this game, which is located on the left-hand side. It's a lot like video poker. So you spin the wheel, and you get 6 ingredients, and you can then opt to keep some of the ingredients and discard the others in an attempt to create one of the recipes. You have 3 discards to try to do it, and within that time frame, you're trying to create the recipe. So, and if you create it, you win the associated entries. So, great little tactic, kind of fun. And in the beginning, most people aren't really paying attention to the ingredients or the food items. They're playing and they're just kind of matching a tomato to a tomato, whatever. But the average person played this over 30 times, and you can rest assured that by the end, everybody was quite aware of what ingredients were in which recipes. And to make this promo a little more functional, work in the real world, you could mouse over any of those recipes, and you would get a mouse over state that showed you more about the recipe, allowed you to print it, and allowed you to send it to your mobile phone so that you could do as I do on your way home, pull it up on your phone, and you'd have all the ingredients right there. So I think this is a great example of how you can take a typical marketing tactic and gamify it and make it fun and drive significantly higher engagement and make sure that people learn the key messages. So we talked about educating consumers about the value propositions of our brand and so forth, but we can also learn stuff from consumers using gamification tactics. So I just threw this together as a little example, but imagine a sweepstakes run by Lowe's, in which I can create my own grand prize, and I could do it by browsing the Lowe's site and picking up the things that I want. As you can see, I chose a barbecue, and maybe I go and choose some patio furniture, and maybe I then go and choose some deck blocks and so forth. Well, from the prize that I created, Lowe's can reasonably surmise that I am in the process of redoing my backyard. So they can then, because 80% of the folks in this program will have opted in, they can then email me offers that they know will be highly relevant to me to prompt me to come into store. And, this can work for any type of tactic, any type of person who's building a grand prize. We can learn about their preferences and what interests them so that it helps us better position our offering to them as we move forward. And I think this is a sort of one area that is often overlooked, is our ability to learn from consumers through our programs. So we can use gamification tactics to get people educated, get them engaged, get them educated, learn a little bit about them. But we can also use them to get people to join our social communities, opt into our emails, and so forth. And I think the big advantage there is it allows us to create a direct pipeline to those consumers, so that we can stay top of mind, so that we're part of their consideration set when time comes for them to purchase a product in our category. And we can do this with simple incentives. For example, you can give people additional entries into a grand prize draw if they opt in, or if they like you or follow, or so forth. You can also give people instant win gameplays for doing so. You can also make the joining of your social communities and so forth part of a larger game. So imagine a game in which you need to find clues to solve a certain mystery, but the clues are nested on our Twitter feed and put on our Facebook page and in our emails and so forth. So that in order for me to increase my odds of solving whatever the riddle or puzzle is, I need to like you, I need to follow you, I need to join your email list, because it's through those mechanics that I am going to get the necessary information to solve the puzzle. And that can be very effective at getting people to join our social communities and sort of build a long-term relationship with us. So the last piece of the puzzle is prompting the sale. And there are lots of tactics we can use to get people into store. And I guess the one thing we want to talk about is that we don't believe that the sale is the end of the cycle. We can certainly offer people incentives within game to go in and purchase, but we can also incentivize shoppers to join our programs and convert shoppers into members. And we do it by featuring those high-value things, right back to that slide about media, how we use, play, win, save, these types of messages. If we incorporate those into our labeling and into our in-store displays and so forth, we can actually get people, the vast majority of whom are carrying a smartphone in their pocket these days, we can get them to engage right then and there and convert those shoppers into long-term members, so that we that interaction isn't a one-time thing where we don't know anything about them and off they go, they've made their sale or they made their purchase. No, we can actually get them to join our communities and so forth, so that we can entice them to come back into store and foster that relationship and nurture it, so that we have a repeat customer and a loyal customer. And I think that's one of the great new sort of untapped opportunities with gamification when combined with the ubiquity of smartphones. So we're just about out of time now, and I'd like to open the field up for questions. I see I've got a couple here, and I'll ping them off here. The first question is, would you recommend for me if I'm trying? What would you recommend for me if I'm trying to do a promotion within a Facebook app? So that's a great question. We don't typically recommend running a promotion on Facebook only, and the reason we don't is that over 40% of North Americans don't have a Facebook account. That's to say nothing of how many people are actually engaged every day with Facebook, which is lower than the number of people that have accounts. As well, more and more Facebook is being blocked in corporate environments because corporations don't want people wasting time at work. And some people just prefer privacy. They don't want other people to see that they're participating in your promotions and so on and so forth. So we typically don't recommend Facebook only because it limits our audience too much. What we do recommend is building a dedicated microsite, and then we can take that microsite content, we can pump it into your Facebook page, we can pipe it into your brand website, we can broadcast it wherever you like, but it gives the consumer the ultimate flexibility. They can participate how they want, when they want, through the device that they want, and they're not limited by running it on Facebook only. So that would be our recommendation. The next question I see here is, what's the most effective type of grand prize for a promotion? Well, it's a good question. So going back to the focus groups we run, we ask this question fairly frequently to see what's currently getting people motivated to engage. Cash is always number one. It's the king. Pretty hard to beat because it offers complete and utter flexibility of your pricing. Interestingly, trips are number 2 and cars are number 3. if it were me, and I'd rather win a car, and if I didn't need the car, I'd sell it and go on a few trips. But for some reason, people like trips more than cars. And then languishing in fourth is consumer electronics. They've been commoditized. They're not that high value anymore, and so I think they've really suffered in terms of their magnetism in terms of a prize. The only other thing I'd say is sort of experience of a lifetime is very high up on the pricing desirability list. So things like a suborbitable flight or a chance to go on a road trip with your favorite sports team, whatever those things are. Those types of prizes can be really effective. So that's all the questions that we have. I want to extend a thanks to everybody for making the time to join our webinar today. I hope it was a good use of your time, and I hope you all have great days. Thanks very much.